there were times it was hard to follow my purpose. And usually those times were when I was feeling compelled to be less authentic of who I am because I was worried what other people thought. So when we think that we should be like other people say we should be, or when we feel like I should do this because that'll look better for me, it will always lead you down a path that is further away from who you eventually will become. And that is something I think is hard to experience, but you will experience it again and again and again with with constantly more severe intensity, until you finally learn to accept that those people have their impression of you, and you no longer care what their impression of you is. Once you no longer care completely and wholly, like if you still care because you want self-validation from other people, you want to be able to know that you're a good person and everything because they say you are. But recognize that they're looking at you through their own individual lens, and what they're saying is fact is not fact at all. It's just simply a facet. It's missing the E. It's a facet of a larger prism of truth. So this is the opportunity for us to be entirely authentic despite all the pressures around us. And that authenticity is exactly to embrace why you're here, what the purpose is, and how you're contributing to this overall Akashic field. You're bringing your emotional states that are your unique perceptions of what's happening. You and I could both go on a roller coaster. You may love roller coasters, I may hate them. I could have a horrific time feeling like I'm going to throw up after, and you could have a wonderful time and feel very invigorated. Let's go do that again. The way we experience the world is not to experience the world from the context of who, or rather what we experience. We experience it as we are, not as it is. We don't experience the world. We don't experience the world as it is. We experience it as we are. And that's the beauty of the world. That's the beauty of what we experience. And I think it's such a wonderful place to live and to experience and to remember who we are and why we're here, to find that authenticity and to find that self-love.
Life's big questions don't come with instructions, but they do come with clues. The Whole of Movement Purpose Lab is where we follow them together. Join a team forming this fall at ourlightnet.org/purpose. Hi, my name is Senka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is to make the impossible possible. I'm here today with Polymath, Robert Edward Grant. He is a visionary, an entrepreneur, an inventor focused on ancient wisdom and how mathematics, music, and sound really do create our reality. He has founded companies in fintech, in biotech, in advanced AI, all of them looking to understand this connection between science and consciousness. He's also the creator and host of the show on Gaia called Codex. This show walks millions of people through this curiosity where he explains how everything from the DNA that we have to the Great Pyramids are connected, and so many of these signs and symbols have been left throughout history and across the world. He is author of Philomath, a call to reunite our creativity and genius. He is also the creator of the Polymath Circle, a think tank for collaborating with geniuses. A big thanks to Robert for all of his work, pulling together all of these ideas into simple, universal truths.
Well, I discovered my purpose to be just me and be authentic as much as I possibly could be. And I think I spent most of my life trying to mold myself into what society thought I should be. And so I had quite a journey. That was all part of my path. It was a beautiful journey, but it just wasn't me. At the end of the day, I felt like I was holding back who I actually was. And then when I finally started to embrace what I am, now in my own uniqueness, then my purpose in life became very clear. And really, that uniqueness is my purpose in life. And it is also to show a path for others, I think, to be able to embrace their own uniqueness as well. Well, I don't think there was ever a moment where I said, oh, this is what I want to do. I think as a kid, I was always like, oh, I like Indiana Jones movies. And so that was always kind of interesting to me. I felt like I had some interest in archaeology, or sort of this spiritual aspect of it too, which is always interlaced through all of the Indiana Jones franchise films. But then in addition to that, I was interested in business and international travel. I was interested in music. I was a musician as well. I was interested in medicine. I was interested in physics and in chemistry and engineering. So these are all things that I was able to express in some way, shape, or form throughout the whole course of my career. I ended up being CEO in the medical device and the pharmaceutical industry. That allowed me to express my beliefs and my unique essence in the form of patents and technologies that I got to create in photonics, as well as in other areas that leveraged my knowledge of music. So my knowledge of music, I now became a music theorist. I never thought I was a musician performer. When I was in high school and college, I had a music scholarship that I kind of gave away because I didn't feel like it was serious enough of a job. And I knew I wasn't probably going to be good enough to be a professional musician. So, but I was able to parlay all of that into music theory and develop an entirely new tuning technique called precise temperament tuning that's kind of taking the world by a lot of interest right now around the world, especially in the EDM space, but also orchestras and instrument makers and everything. They're all interested in how I've changed the relationship between notes and made it a more natural and perfectly geometric sort of attribution. And that's been very exciting for me. So the diversity of the things I do has been one of the most fun things about what I do, because I'm never bored. I'm constantly finding myself in uncomfortable situations where I'm talking to a group of Egyptologists, for example, explaining to them what I've discovered in Egyptology that I was only able to derive because of my expertise in mathematics and geometry. And that's not their expertise. So what I'd found when I started filing all these patents, and I'm getting close to 100 patents now, the patents were coming, the innovations were coming because I took concepts from one area and applied them to entirely new areas that they hadn't been applied to before. And I'd taken the same approach to mathematics and cryptography and geometry and music theory and Egyptology. All of these areas, and physics as well, all of these areas are able to be benefited because what we perceive in the outer world is that there's this separation between everything, but it's actually incorrect, right? It's just a false separation, Applied mathematics is geometry, applied geometry is physics, applied physics is chemistry, applied chemistry is biology. Applied biology is psychology, applied psychology is sociology, applied sociology is back to philosophy, and applied philosophy is back to mathematics. So it's just a big circle, and we artificially separate it all out, and we teach it as being, these things shall never meet up, never the twain shall meet. And I think that leaves us in society with an inability to solve very complex problems, because we think that we can only solve things with greater complexity. And actually, the only thing that can solve complex problems is greater simplicity. It's simplicity that is the solution to complexity, not more complexity. I used to think about what is my destiny going to be, because I always felt like maybe I wasn't living my destiny, but now I don't think like that at all, because I feel like I am living my purpose and I'm living my destiny, and I know that everything's already been done. And it's almost as if I feel like we're living in a movie that's playing backwards, that's fully completed, and we think it's playing forwards. Well, I believe that what we consider to be destiny is just the free will of the higher self. And that's you also. So everything is set. In physics, we know and we can easily understand that the past and the present are involved in creating the future, right? We get this. And there's probably a math equation associated with that. I believe I know what that equation might be, but notwithstanding whatever that equation is, we all get the idea that past and present equal the future somehow, some way. But if I started with the future, right, and then try to solve backwards to what would have to be the pathway for the past and the present to create that future state, that's a much more difficult thing to ascribe some sort of concept to, right? And it's because if we used even just multiplication, we multiply like two numbers that are prime numbers. So 137 multiplied, that's the past state, multiplied by another prime number, 89, equals 12,193. So if I asked you to multiply the past and the present, 137 times 89, it's very quick that you can get the answer, right? But this is a one-way street function, because when we try to do that equation backwards, starting with only the future and then trying to find the exact prime number pathways that created it in the past and in the present, you have to do a trial and error test on it. There's no other way to do it until I discovered a geometric method to do it, to factor prime numbers. And you can do it much, much more quickly and instantly, in fact, for numbers that are, within at least kind of the same realm. The distance between prime numbers, if it's not so great, even if it's a very large number, let's say whatever the number is, you could take, if the number is 10 to the 600 power in length, so that would be a number with lots and lots of digits, right? So 10 to the 600 power in length, I can be as far apart in length from that other number for the two prime factors as 10 to the 300 power, and be able to solve, just knowing the future state, exactly what the past and the present would have to be, instantly. So this is a geometric solution because it has to be all set. And we think that it seems random, right? But it's not random, because if you constrict the pathway that it has to be prime numbers, there's only one path that creates that future state. There's no mistakes. So, when I say destiny is the free will of the higher self, it means that everything is already set. There's a version of you that's your higher self that already exists. So you're not going to fail to get there because it's already there. And we're just living this and thinking that it's playing one direction because there's a one-way street function. But actually, and that's what the mathematics of prime factorization is, that's why it's used in cryptography. You could say that the encryption layer, if you were thinking of this as an architect, right? The encryption layer between the fourth and fifth dimensions is time. Time is the encryption, right? We think it only goes one direction. It has an arrow that goes one way, but actually it goes both ways, and it must be so, because the past and the present and the future are all entangled. So therefore, everything that we think that we could make a mistake on, that the world's going to end and everything, if the world's going to end, it's just going to end, right? I'm not going to worry about it anymore, because I know if that's the timeline I'm in, that's the timeline I'm in. I can't jump the timeline. I'm not going to change it. There's no changing it. So there's therefore no stress about it either. And there's no stress also for me to be wondering, am I going to be able to live out my purpose? I will live out my purpose. It's part of the architecture. Yeah, so, where do we get to in the end? Is this something that just continues to go on and on? I don't even like the word enlightenment, to be honest, because it implies an ending to enlightenment. I don't think there is an ending. I think that we continue to enlighten, and that's part of this game, and that the universe, the universal source, creator, wanted to experience itself through all of our unique eyes of perception. So it divided itself into these many different eyes of perception that are all unique, and they must be unique because it's the uniqueness that is most valuable inside this universe, because every time there's a unique perspective, then Source Creator gets to learn something unique and new about itself. So each of us has value, and each of us has equal value. And therefore, we also have equal darkness and equal light. I'm not afraid of people that have darkness. I'm only afraid of people that believe they have no darkness. Because people that believe they have no darkness, they're just disintegrated. They don't understand. And then they'll do anything under the auspices of calling it the ethical imperative to justify their end result. Whatever that end result might be. It could be genocide. It could be something else. But even that, the very fact, it's like the movie The Matrix, when Neo comes to the Oracle and the Oracle says, please sit down on the park bench. And he says, no, I've decided I want to stand. And she says, okay, suit yourself. And then he finally sits down. And he looks at her and he says, he felt the need to explain. He says, I decided to sit down now. And she goes, mm-hmm. And he goes, but you already knew I was going to decide to sit down. She goes, I wouldn't be much of an oracle if I didn't. Every decision we will yet make is only an illusion of choice. It's already been made. We're just experiencing this as an experiential learning environment. It's a spiritual life simulation game we're going through that is continually taking us through the depths of Source Creator through our unique eyes of perspective so that we can learn. I think that it's kind of like, I see it as this. It's like a dream. In the dream, I could be living a dream right now. I don't even know. I wouldn't know if I were living in a dream unless I somehow became aware that I was in a dream. And then I could have a lucid dream, and then I would no longer be bound by the rules of the dream. So, but if I'm in a dream, there's you are in my dream, and he's in my dream, and all the other people out there are all in my dream. Who are they? They're still me. This is a You-inverse, so it's like I have a prime number. That's my unique energetic signature that has a prime number, and certain light reflects off of that prime number. The accumulation of all my DNA creates a certain light signature that is nanometers of light. And then the absorption of those reflections is my outer world. It's a mirror. We are in a mirror of consciousness. And we often want to be judgmental about what experience Source Creator or we would choose for ourselves. But let's be real for a moment. So let's just say that we knew that there's no such thing as death. Maybe there's just a transition, but it's not painful, and it's certainly not something to be really terrified about. If you knew that, then would you choose to die the same way every time? Would you want to be written out of the script in a unique way each time? I think so. I think maybe I would choose, I want to die making love to the love of my life. Okay, that might work for 5 or 6 times. But after that, I'm going to want to have a James Bondian fiery cataclysmic death. And that's going to be some new learning for me, some new experience. So we all tend to think that how we see the world is how everyone else should see the world. They're not facts, they're facets. When someone asked yesterday, oh, how do we teach all the people in the world what we know? It's like, I don't try. I also don't do the opposite of trying as well. I just let it flow. If it flows, that I get an interview and ask these types of questions, and then it ends up being seen by lots of people, then that's the role of consciousness making that happen, because it was just already written and already done. But I don't go out there and try to convince anyone of anything. I don't really care. I just want to accept them for what they are. Even if they might disagree with me, I want to accept them just for being their unique selves. They might be a jerk to me. I still want to accept them because I realize that they create, it's the villain that creates the hero. The hero can only begin when the villain ends. And vice versa. You need a villain. You need contrast. Darkness is not the absence of light. It's the opposed or opposite or absorbed condition of light's reflection. It's like 2 sides of the same coin across a mirror. And when we try in this world to get rid of things out of ourselves, and we look in the mirror and we say, I don't like this about myself. I don't like that about me. I don't like the way my nose looks. I don't like the way my butt looks. I don't like the way, my boobs look. I don't like whatever. All that happens is those things that you don't like about yourself end up showing up in your world all around you. If you don't like that you're arrogant, so you feel the need to deflect it on someone else and say, or maybe project it on someone else, and say, oh, that guy's so arrogant. Guess what? If you're the person that's complaining about being surrounded by assholes, it's because you're the asshole. You are what you judge, just like the Buddha said. And he says it very clearly. He's like, I am not what you think I am. You are what you think I am. It's a mirror-reflected universe. And in that karmic mirror, if I give a gift to someone, in the mirror, they're giving me back a gift. Right? It's an opposites mirror. And this is the beauty of this earth and this world, is we get a chance to live and experience this, and we get to learn through opposites. If I'm here to learn unconditional love, I will undoubtedly experience over and over and over again betrayal and conditional love. It's my lot in life. And until I've learned how to accept betrayal without judgment, then I still haven't learned unconditional love. I will learn the concepts of pleasure and the experience of pleasure through experiencing pain. And we volunteer to come here because this is the place that we can actually make material and experience these learnings beyond the didactic. It's a big school that's structured like a play. There were times it was hard to follow my purpose. And usually those times were when I was feeling compelled to be less authentic of who I am, because I was worried what other people thought. So when we think that we should be like other people say we should be, or when we feel like I should do this because that'll look better for me, it will always lead you down a path that is further away from who you eventually will become. And that is something I think is hard to experience, but you will experience it again and again and again with with constantly more severe intensity, until you finally learn to accept that those people have their impression of you, and you no longer care what their impression of you is. Once you no longer care completely and wholly, like if you still care because you want self-validation from other people, you want to be able to know that you're a good person and everything because they say you are. But recognize that they're looking at you through their own individual lens, and what they're saying is fact is not fact at all. It's just simply a facet. It's missing the E. It's a facet of a larger prism of truth. So this is the opportunity for us to be entirely authentic despite all the pressures around us. And that authenticity is exactly to embrace why you're here, what the purpose is, and how you're contributing to this overall Akashic field. You're bringing your emotional states that are your unique perceptions of what's happening. You and I could both go on a roller coaster. You may love roller coasters. I may hate them. I could have a horrific time feeling like I'm going to throw up after, and you could have a wonderful time and feel very invigorated. Let's go do that again. The way we experience the world is not to experience the world from the context of who, or rather what we experience. We experience it as we are, not as it is. We don't experience the world as it is. We experience it as we are. And that's the beauty of the world. That's the beauty of what we experience. And I think it's such a wonderful place to live and to experience and to remember who we are and why we're here, to find that authenticity and to find that self-love. Just go with it, right? It's like what you feel is right. You have your own inner voice and you know what you feel right about. There are some realities that you have to do. It's like you don't want to be stuck too low on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Because if you're just saying, okay, I'm in my authenticity, and you can't hold down a job, and you have to be worried about eating, and you have to worry about not having a shelter over your head, or you're providing for your family or whatever, then that's not exactly fully wise, right? So you should be able to practice your absolute authenticity without having to starve or go and become homeless as a result of it. And if you're not able to, then that's probably because you're not truly in your real authenticity. So sometimes we think that we want to do things because it might be our pet project or whatever. It's not like I wanted to be an actor. Like for now, the funny part is I ended up winning at the Conscious Awards like Best Actor and Best TV Host for my show Codex. I was like, I never wanted to be an actor. TV host, but I never even wanted to have a TV show. So that was not something that was an aspiration for me. I felt the need to share it because it was going to benefit me in the teaching of it. It would actually take and solidify and collate all of these different things I'd learned and gotten over many years of research, and forced me to get better at explaining it in a more simplistic way, rather than if I was going to talk to somebody about what I've done on the pyramids, and finding the mathematics of it, I could bore someone to tears in going through all this detail that doesn't need to be there. But because I went through this whole travel log of exactly what I experienced and how I experienced it and why it was significant to me, and if I did that, then no one would want to listen to it. So you have to find something that people are going to really fall in love with also, and matches up with your Ikigai. And Ikigai is when, the world will value what you bring uniquely to it and will pay you for it. it's also where your passions overlap with what you're good at, right? And so when all of those things come together and you can get paid for it as well, and it's a benefit to society, then amen, go for it. And that's what your true authentic self should be able to get to. And if it's not there, that means you still have to do more work in order for you to get there. And you might have to go down certain pathways in order for you to find yourself in the place you eventually want to be, in your absolute authenticity. And then don't be surprised when you have surprises along the way that were, like having a TV show. I never thought I was going to have a TV show. And then it came about. And now, we're already talking about season 3. So it's like, I never thought in a million years I would do that. And many of the things, I never thought I was going to become a music theorist. It was when I realized that geometry was the music we experience with our eyes. So therefore, in order to understand geometry better, I had to get a really strong grasp on music. So I started going down the path of music and then realized, there's a way to tune music that is absolutely coherent with the geometry itself in a more significant way. And so is that something that's useful to people? Well, yes, Robert. The musicians have been trying to find the perfect tuning for forever, So then enter precise temperament tuning. Right? It's by being authentic and allowing the path to reveal itself, by remembering that the movie's already made of your life. You just have to find out not why something happened to you, but rather why you chose what you chose. Because the sooner you can grasp that concept, the sooner you no longer have to experience the negative aspects that get you on the way for your preparation. This is the way I kind of see it. That it is it's a beautiful world when we let it be a beautiful world and let it unravel for you in its own unique way. And it's very difficult to see how the dots connect until you can see them in the retrospect. And then a lot of these things will become answers for you instantly. For me, a big moment, a watershed moment for me is in 2018 in May, when I'd been studying alchemy and I kept seeing in visions Alpha and Omega. I was in California and I kept seeing Alpha Omega. I was drawing it in sacred geometry. It was showing up in my consciousness everywhere. And right before I left, I remember I was at my in-laws' house, and a big Bennu bird, which is a big giant white egret, landed right in front of me. And I was taking some bags out of the car and I was like, whoa. And it was like 10 feet in front of me. It was huge. And it looked at me, and this is the Egyptian phoenix, right? The Egyptian phoenix is called a Bennu, and which is a giant white egret. And I'd never seen one in Southern California before. Like, it must have escaped from one of the parks or something. I don't know what happened, but anyway, basically this bird was standing there looking at me, and I pulled out my phone to take a picture of it. It turned around and flew away. And I got it mid-flight, but it was already kind of far away because it was very fast. And it was huge. It probably had like 6 or 7 foot wingspan. It was a big bird. So I knew that something special was going to happen as I was leaving to go to Israel the next day. And the entire time I was in Israel, I was going to finish up the trip in Egypt. The entire time I was in Israel, I kept drawing Alpha Omega, Alpha Omega, Alpha Omega, all in the sacred geometry aspects of it. It was a very spiritual trip for me. And then I ended up going on the last night I was in Israel, in Jerusalem, to this cave. It was called Zedekiah's Cave. It's where they have a quarry. The quarry for Solomon's temple was underneath that. It's under the Dome of the Rock. So it's on the Jordanian side. And we had a big dinner in there. It was like big candelabra dinner. There was a harpist in there and everything. It was like this epic thing. And so, of course, I was like, oh, there's a rope and it says do not enter. So what do? I was supposed to give the speech that night. So I said, I got to find the bathroom, and acted like I was going to the bathroom. I jumped the rope and went deep in the cave. And I didn't turn my light on my iPhone until I got deep in the cave. And then finally, I got into a part of the cave where I found on the ground was like these steps that looked like an altar almost. It was just built into the cave itself. And these steps had turned from limestone into quartz crystal. And I was actually looking because I knew that the Ark of the Covenant had been hidden in that cave for a long time. So I was trying to find where the Ark might have been. And the place where the quartz crystal had been transmuted from the limestone was probably a good guess. So I stopped right there, and I was videotaping it, and I looked down on the floor, and the place I was standing looking down on the floor, and it said Alpha Omega in the floor. So I was like, whoa, that's crazy. And I remember I was staying in room 314 at the David, the Hotel David, Hotel King David in Jerusalem. So I went back to my room and I'm like, well, that must be why I was seeing the Alpha Omega, because I found the Alpha Omega. Maybe this is the spot where the Ark was hidden. The next day, I flew with 12 of my friends that were on the same trip with me to Egypt. And on the flight over, I was still drawing Alpha Omega, and it was still in my consciousness, all these different aspects of it. And that night, we went into the Great Pyramid and the King's Chamber. And one of my friends was laying in the sarcophagus. And while I was standing on top of the sarcophagus, I had a memory flashback of being in there where the pyramid was being dedicated. And I put Alpha Omega on the rim with a blue-green light, some device that basically made it and melted the granite and basically impressed it as a debossing. And right where I remembered seeing it, now all of a sudden I was in the room with 5 people, and in this timeline I was in the room with 12 people. So I was with 5 other people in that other timeline. We're all dressed differently and everything. We're in a totally different timeline. And I looked down exactly where the Alpha Omega was. And the next thing I know, the moment I looked down at it, I was back in that timeline, and exactly where I looked, there was an Alpha Omega on the rim that no one had ever seen before. That's when I knew my life was dramatically different from that moment forward. That there was some thing that was divine, that was part of my purpose or mission. I didn't even know what it was at that point in time, but I knew it was big. Well, I measured the distance to see if it might be graffiti or something, but it's not graffiti. If you try to take a hammer and chisel to that, the whole thing will shatter. It's dolerite. It's rose granite, which is mainly quartz crystal. So I measured the distance from the corner, and it was 33 inches. And alpha is a mathematical constant, which is 1 over 137. So in prime numbers, that's the 33rd prime number. So maybe each inch was representing prime numbers, right? And the omega was at 0.3 of the length of the sarcophagus. So, which happened to be, so the 33rd inch, right? And the relationship of that was against the length of the sarcophagus, which was 89.62 inches. That was 0.3 of the length of the of the sarcophagus. And that at the 30th inch, right, that was, it was, for the peak of the A, it was 0.3678, 3678 of the length of the whole 89.62 inches, which is 1 over the Euler number, which I was like, whoa, that's interesting. So you've got alpha at the 33rd inch, which is 33rd prime number, and 1 over the Euler number is its length as a proportion of the sarcophagus. So Euler is 2.718, so it was 0.3678. And then I looked at the omega for any correlations, and the peak of the omega was at the 30th inch, which was exactly 0.33 of the length of the sarcophagus. And of course, the 33rd number is a reference in Freemasonry. It's been around a long time for resurrection. It's a reference to Christ consciousness and entering into Christ consciousness. So I knew that something was up with that, and it was somehow related to mathematics and somehow encoded in math. And about a week later is when I discovered the prime number pattern and published it. So I got back to the US, and on the flight home, I was literally figuring out the prime number pattern in Mod 24, and then I discovered a new kind of number called quasi-primes that allowed me to predict prime numbers infinitely. Backwards time, the knowledge of backwards time, is part of the 5th dimensional experience, or 4th density as people refer to it. And I think that being able to access different space-time realities is also part of the 5th dimensional experience. And that the Great Pyramid becomes like a teleportation device. And everywhere in the world where you have an Orion's Belt correlation are teleportation devices. And I have been out in the astral. I've been taken by 2 Arcturian guides to the Boot system, to Pleiades, to Sirius. And that was incredible. I felt like I was gone for 3 weeks. It was like I was gone for 5 hours. But what I'm actually talking about now with the Stargate is actually a physical teleportation. That they figured out a way to master this. So what I believe. And that is part of our future evolution. That we too will be able to be captains of our fate and masters of our soul, or masters of our fate and captains of our soul. I think we'll be able to be captains, intergalactic captains. And I believe as well that what we're dealing with in the Great Pyramid and the star systems that are on the walls are actually it's all constellations that are all part of the Orion spur of the galaxy. So it's not even the full galaxy. It's just a segment of the galaxy that has probably about a radius of maximum 10,000 light years. Actually, time and space are linked. That's why it's called space-time. So I think, and maybe we end on this, that number in itself is arithmetic. Number in space is geometry. Number in time is music. Number in space-time is what we call cosmology. But number in time-space, the knowledge that time goes backwards as well as forwards, is purpose. So we're here to find that purpose. And so therefore, in order for us to find that purpose, we end up having to break through the encryption. And that encryption is time. I mean, it's theorized that time, mass, and energy are all equivalent. They have a time, mass, energy equivalence. Right? So when you've got that relationship, then you realize that 1 over energy has a relationship to time. So they're all connected. So if that's the case, and electromagnetism is emergent and gravity is emergent from that electromagnetism, it's an artifact of it. So, photons don't carry mass, but phonons have been proven to carry mass. So is that just the sound aspect of the light that we're not seeing because of the medium that's passing through? I believe that sound and light are actually the same wave. It's just one of them is expressing that is in a way that our eyes can perceive. The other is expressing in a way that is for our ears to perceive. So time then in that context becomes relative to gravity. And 1 over gravity is, related then, therefore, to time and energy and electromagnetism. The equation for the number of seconds we have in a day is exactly the gravitational constant divided by 1 subtracted from the square root of pi, which comes out to be 86,400 seconds in a day. So the gravitational constant, which is 6.67408, divided by the square root of 1 minus 1, the square root of pi minus 1, gives us 86,400. It's the number of seconds in a day. I don't think it's coincidence. I think the matrix is already breaking. But look around. It's already breaking. I mean, just the fact that in 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics that was given was for quantum entanglement. And that basically said that, local realism is false. If you're not observing something, it's not there. So I'd say the matrix is breaking itself. It wants to be revealed now. It's like playing with us. It's toying with me. And you can see it in every synchronicity, and the number of synchronicities dramatically increase as you go down this path. I was talking on the phone with someone, one of my guys that works on my social media team, and we were talking about the Rudra Granthi, which is the energetic knot before the crown chakra awakening and activation, the full permanent one that gives you the 1,000-petaled lotus. And right when I was talking to him about it, as I was saying that that's kind of funny because it's Ra, which is the sun god, Ra. Rudra just means weeping god, weeping sun god. It's also Rama. Ra. Granthi, which is spelled like my last name. Grant, but it's HI on the end of it, but it's pronounced Granthi. Same thing. Sounds like Grant. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of funny, because this is the portal that I was supposed to like give up my identification. It's the doorway to no one. So you release yourself from being your identity, and you allow yourself to sink into that and to surrender to it. And at the same time, you become everyone. And I realized that the universe itself is called the cosmic Granti. So I was like, this is just too funny. And then I look up, and I'm driving on the Highway 17, on the way here from Phoenix. And the road exit, right where I am, was Grant Street. There are no coincidences in this universe. Everything is there to give us the affirmations of things. It's just, are we awake to it or not? And some are awake to it, and some are not awake to it. And some are not yet awake to it that will be awake to it. I didn't used to be awake to it. Does that make me a muggle? I guess so. So I was a muggle that basically woke up exactly on the timeline that I was supposed to. Thank goodness that I got to learn how to manifest right in the material world before I became spiritual. Because, I mean, it makes life a lot easier. A lot of people struggle with how to learn how to manifest when they're so stuck in the ethereal realms, and they're not able to make things manifest because they are too high up in the sky in their thoughts. So we need to be in balance, and it's the balance of masculine and feminine that makes us divine. It's not getting rid of the darkness and only embodying the light that makes us divine. Godlike beings or angelic beings are we're talking about the subtle realms of differentiation between masculine and feminine energy. Even the angel Metatron is said to, while he may appear like Shiva as being very masculine, he's in perfect balance with his feminine. That is what the achievement is actually derived from. It's through the balance of those energies that it gets us to the divine. It's not getting rid of the darkness. It's being able to embrace and accept it, not necessarily condone it, but to tame it. I don't know that, are there more synchronicities when I'm on my path towards my purpose? It seems that way. But is that really true or not? Are the synchronicities there and I'm just not noticing before that time? I don't really know the answer to that question because I don't know what I don't know. So I would say that when I'm in alignment, I tend to get more synchronicities. Those synchronicities may be in the form of, I got a chill up my back, or there was a number that showed up, or I look at, someone tells me something and it feels like it's right, and I look at my iPhone to see what time it is, and it's exactly, 1:37 or 4:32 or 1111, and then I'm like, okay, I don't take it as fact at that moment. I take it as another input variable that comes in, and I don't ignore it. I definitely do not ignore it. Carl Jung says that you can literally track your journey towards your individuation path, which is what he referred to as enlightening or enlightenment. And the way you track it is by the number of synchronicities you're tracking every day. If a majority of the world was living in purpose and passion, I think that I would hope that it would be a world with more love and less judgment. I don't believe that the world is, I don't think we're here. A lot of people think we come to this school to learn more judgment, to learn better discernment, to learn judgment. I don't think that's the case. I think the world has enough judgment. I don't think the world needs more judgment. I think it needs more love. And I think the main reason we're here is to learn how to love and how to be loved. It's like the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. I think there's something very deep and profound to that. And we are an expression of God, source energy and source creator, experiencing self-love through our unique eyes of perception. And through each of our unique perspectives, wisdom is gained. More empathy. His capacity increases from infinite to even more infinite. And it's a beautiful transition when we start to realize our own divine selves. We're all just divisions of the number one. We have God consciousness in all of us. And if you think that the rest of the world, looking out this beautiful window at this vista, it's easy to see divinity inside that. It's not hard to say that's divine. Of course it's divine. It's obviously divine. It's beautiful. And then feeling the energy of all the crystal around here. You can definitely feel it. But if you think that the whole world is divine except you, because you're worried that you might be an egomaniac to say that you're divine as well, then your separation by determining that you're the one that's not divine, that's egoic. Ego just means separation. You're creating more separation of everything else is divine and godlike, and you're the only aspect of it that's not because you know you're a wretch. That's just an ego thing playing out in a narrative for you to satisfy some aspect of yourself, because maybe you felt shame one day for being overly arrogant or egoic. And remember, if you spot something in someone else, that means you got it. So every trigger becomes an opportunity for growth. And that's what's happening now. People are all waking up that, wait, maybe all the perspectives that I had were only facets, not facts. And maybe what I'm experiencing is being reflected back to me for all the aspects of me that I have basically rejected and thrown out of myself. No wonder I lived then in a dystopian world, because I spent 55 years rejecting aspects of myself that then show up in the world around me like Whac-a-Mole, until I finally learn how to integrate and accept it in love and grace. And when I do, then the world starts to change, because I no longer need to integrate that lesson. It's been integrated.
If this episode sparked something inside of you, consider joining a Holo Movement Purpose Lab team starting this September. The world needs you to bring something that only you can, and you weren't meant to figure this out alone. Join us.